Hey friends, Richard at the Jam Space with another iPad Pro related video. This time I'll be sharing the 3 reasons why I think Apple should finally go pro with their iPadOS 15 that they'll be releasing or at least announcing at this upcoming WWDC in June. But first, if you could give me a comment below, a like, and maybe even a subscribe, especially a subscribe, help me get to my goal of 100 subscribers by the end of June. That would be awesome. Thanks to all the new subs and all the good comments and vibes from my last video, which you can check out up here. Yeah, the 3 reasons why I decided to go ahead and pre-order the M1 iPad Pro. Let's get back to this video here and the reasons why I think that Apple is going to take iPadOS to the next level. Let's begin. Okay, so the first reason why it's time for iPadOS to go pro, well, let's take a little bit of a historical look at iPadOS, a very short history. It was debuted at WWDC 2019 with iPadOS 13.1. This was a major shift where they separated iOS and iPadOS into 2 separate kind of classes. It signaled to us that they understand the limitations of iOS and that iPadOS needs special attention in order to turn it into a better, user interface for people who want to use the device like a computer. So it was a good sign, and let me tell you, I'll just read down the list here. They brought a lot of things. Slide over and split view, so that's kind of, two apps on the screen, and then you can swipe a third one in and move it all over the screen and then get rid of it if you want. They introduced widgets, improved cursor navigation, external drives were supported in files, local storage for creating folders and columns to search nested folders, the ability to zip and unzip files. Like, this is, basic computer, functions. And Safari got desktop class browsing. Websites were automatically optimized. It got a download manager. They brought in dark mode for the iPad. They redesigned the share sheet, and there was the support for the mouse and trackpad, the official support. And then there was the iCloud folder sharing in the Files app. So all of that came with iPadOS 13. It was like, yeah, we were so excited about just,
like, I can do normal stuff on an iPad Pro now.
Really, other than the Pro Display XDR, iPadOS was really kind of like the star of WWDC 2019. The following year, iPadOS was kind of like an off year. There was a little bit of a widget redesign. There was new sidebars were designed for a number of Apple's apps. And then the scribble function, which I guess if you don't have a keyboard, I don't really use that really with the way that I use an iPad Pro. So, I mean, really there was really not much. iPadOS 14, you could think of it kind of how macOS, sometimes there's like a major, transformative, upgrade when they release a new OS. And then there's years where it's just, bug fixes and, under the hood kind of stuff that you don't see, but, just working on stabilizing things. And I think that's what iPadOS 14 was in 2020. But I think there was another reason, and it was basically because in 2020, the Mac was the star of the show. Mac OS Big Sur was kind of, again, it was one of those major OS years where it was a really transformative change. And actually they went from 10.15, they incremented to 11. They hadn't done that since all the way back to 2001. The first Mac OS 10 Cheetah, never used that, never heard of it before, but I looked it up. And so it was 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, all the way from 2001 to WWDC last year. They upgraded it to Mac OS 11 Big Sur. iPad Pro, iPadOS, they had to take a back seat in 2020 to all of this information about the Mac and what's coming. And we didn't know it was called the M1. We didn't know anything about it, but they teased that, hey, we're ditching Intel. We're going to do our own thing. It's going to be awesome. Apple Silicon, they weren't They didn't reveal the name of M1 until later. They're really good at just telling you what you need to know and no more. If they would have done a bunch of the major things that iPadOS could still use, it would have taken away from all the people who were like, yes, finally I can get a new Mac. That was a major shift. It was a massive software upgrade for the Macs in 2020. Here we are now. We're looking forward to WWDC 2021. And I tell you, it is time for a software super cycle on the iPad. Apple's really good at doing this. They're really good at, man, Mac is so awesome. I got to get a new Mac. Oh, wait a minute. What's going on with iPad Pro? That's really awesome. I think I know why. We used to be, thinking, should I get a Mac? Yeah, maybe I should get a PC. Mac? PC? 50% of the time you're choosing an Apple product. If they can get you to think, well, should I get a Mac or should I get an iPad Pro? They got you either way, right? So it can't be an obvious choice. That's why the Mac line's going to have, its things that it has that are advantages, and the iPad Pro line's going to have its things. But they still both need to be getting better. They each get their turn to intrigue us, to get our attention. They have some positives and some negatives to each of them, and I wish you had this, I wish you had that. And maybe they will converge at some point, but right now they're doing really well by having this diversity in their lineup. They're both computers now. They really are. It's the iPad Pro's turn to get a big step forward in software. That's been a major limitation, and it's time to finally, really take that step forward and give us some better interface, better multitasking. It's time for an iPadOS supercycle. iPadOS 15, iPad Pro OS. I think that really that historical kind of look at iPad in 2019, Mac in 2020, and here we are in 2021. It's iPadOS's turn again, and we're going to go Pro this time. So the second reason is really boils down to hardware. If you look at the specs for the iPad Pro 2018 and the 2020 and the 2021 that's coming out, and even look at the iPad Air 2020, all of these devices have a minimum of 4 gigabytes of RAM. They have, on the lower end, an A12X chip or an A14 Bionic chip in the iPad Air. These are really capable devices, and there's 4 of them now that are going to be floating around out there in people's hands. They have achieved a certain level of market saturation. There are enough users with highly capable devices. It's worth it now for Apple to make that commitment of, their operating software team to be dedicated to making a more robust iPadOS. The iPad Pro is really on the cusp of becoming a mass adopted device. I think that it still kind of qualifies as maybe a bit of a niche item, but with a really true and proper computer operating system, the iPad Pro is going to be launched into another realm of computing. Yes, they'll be held back because they'll have the M1s when, Macs are going to get the M1X or the M2, whatever it ends up being, but that's fine. The iPad Pro is going to finally get a more grown-up operating system. There's enough people with these devices in our hands. We are ready to go, Apple. It's in your hands to decide our fates. Ball is in your hands, Apple. We're ready to go. Let's make iPadOS 15 more pro. Okay, and the third reason why I believe that iPadOS 15 is finally gonna go pro is that it's us, the users, the professional users. We demand it. We've been begging for it for years. Look at an M1 iPad Pro fully loaded with 2 terabytes of storage. You've got Wi-Fi and 5G cellular. You get yourself an Apple Pencil 2, and why don't you throw in a Magic Keyboard 2? We're looking at $2,877 US. People are putting their money down, and they are expecting Apple to match our commitment with the operating system that we deserve. Apple doesn't have to do it. They could, in June here, it could be swing and a miss, but I think that would be just such a wasted opportunity. I know they like to hold back on things. They like to keep us waiting. They do enter the market on things slower. They want to make sure they do it right. Well, I think the waiting is up. I think that's why we got this new M1 iPad Pro that is so much more capable. 16 gigabytes of RAM, M1 chip. They have got to be planning something with this iPadOS 15. I will fully admit it if I end up being wrong. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. Give me a comment below if you had something that you thought you wanted to add. Maybe you have a different opinion and you wanted to share it. That's totally cool. I'd love it if you could like and help the algorithm get this video out to more people. And of course, again, if you can give me a subscribe, that would be awesome. Richard here at the Jam Space. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.